In the bustling city of Lagos, where wealth sits side by side with suffering, and concrete towers rise beside muddy streets, lived Adana Okoro, a woman known only by her influence, never by her face. She owned estates across Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. Her father had left her a legacy, and she had multiplied it with smart investments, oil shares, and housing developments. Yet despite her empire, she woke up every morning feeling an emptiness she couldn't explain. She ate breakfast at a long table, but no laughter echoed around it. She walked through her mansion, but not a single person truly cared for her, only her money. She once heard her driver whisper to the cook, "Madam wouldn't know love if it slapped her in the face. The only love she has is in her bank account." That night, she stared at her reflection in the marble bathroom and wondered if it was true. She had thousands of employees, dozens of associates, but not a single true friend. Every handshake came with an expectation. Every smile came with a price. She began to ask herself, if I lost everything today, who would remain beside me? Months passed with that question haunting her. She attended wealthy parties, business conventions, charity galas, all filled with people who called her Madame Okoro with a practiced smile. She knew none of them would stand beside her if things went wrong. And then, a strange idea came to her, an idea that sounded insane at first. She decided to pretend to be poor. Not just for an hour, not for a day, but for 30 days. She would disappear from her mansion, leave behind her luxury, change her name, remove her expensive hairstyles, and live like an ordinary woman. She wanted to see the truth of people. She wanted to find one thing money could not buy: loyalty. The plan took 3 months. Her legal team arranged it. She put a temporary freeze on her personal accounts. She prepared a fake identity, Amanwosu, supposedly a woman from a small village in Enugu State, looking for work in Lagos. She moved into a modest one-room apartment in Ajagunal, one of the roughest areas of the city. The walls of the room were cracked, the window barely closed, but she felt something strange: freedom. She wore second-hand clothes, bought cheap slippers, and walked through the streets without bodyguards, without makeup, without luxury. For the first time in years, nobody looked at her twice. Nobody tried to impress her. She sat by a roadside suya stand and tasted the food locals ate every day. It burned her tongue, but she smiled. The city felt different without tinted cars. The streets carried stories she had never known. She heard market women yelling prices, young boys running errands, Okada riders bargaining sharply. She heard children laughing freely in broken sandals. She saw true life, and she realized that wealth had blinded her to it. On the 5th day, she found a job, not in an office, not in a shop, but as a cleaner in one of her own hotels. The irony made her laugh in private. She entered through the staff entrance, not the VIP door she usually used. The manager, Mr. Balagan, wouldn't even look at her twice. He treated her like air. "Start on Monday. Salary is 30,000 naira a month. Don't complain." "That's all," he said coldly. She looked around and found other cleaners. Some friendly, some rude. But one stood out, a calm woman named Miriam, with deep brown eyes and a tired yet peaceful smile. She didn't speak much, but she always helped others quietly. When an elderly cleaner tripped, Miriam rushed forward and helped her up, without expecting anything in return. Later, during break time, she asked Adana, now using her fake name Amma, "You're new here. Where are you from?" "Enugu," Amma replied softly. "Ah. My husband's cousin is there. How is life back home?" "Hard," Amma said. "Crops failed last season. People are struggling." Miriam nodded sadly. Lagos is no paradise either. But sometimes, when life fails to give us what we need, we find strength we didn't know we had. She smiled gently and returned to work. For the first time in years, Amma felt touched by someone's honesty. In the following days, she worked under harsh conditions. The hotel supervisor, a slim man named Eric, spoke to everyone like they were worthless. He shouted at the cleaners, insulted their efforts, and even when they worked hard, he found something wrong. Amma wanted to fire him immediately, but she couldn't break her disguise. One afternoon, Eric poured dirty water intentionally on the floor just to yell at the staff. "All of you are useless. How can you clean rooms like this? If it were up to me, I'd sack all of you." Alma clenched her fists. She wanted to scream, to reveal who she really was, but she stayed silent. And once again, she saw Miriam quietly cleaning without complaining. When others cursed the job, Miriam simply said, "At least we are not begging on the street. Work is still dignity." Alma asked her later why she was always calm. Miriam sighed, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I have 3 children. Their father left when the last one was born. I can't afford anger. Anger doesn't feed children. Peace does." Those words struck Alma deeply. She began to watch Miriam carefully, not to judge, but to learn. Sometimes they walked home together. Miriam lived in a tiny compound with other families, laundry hanging outside, children playing with old tires, women cooking jollof rice with small pots over charcoal fire. Alma felt a strange envy. There was struggle here, yet there was community. In her mansion, there was luxury, but no soul. One night, heavy rain fell. Streets flooded. Miriam found Alma shivering by her door. She looked at her without hesitation and said, "Come inside. No one should be outside in this weather." The room was cramped, the roof leaking, but it felt more welcoming than any penthouse Alma had stayed in. As they sat on the floor, sharing hot pap in plastic cups, Miriam asked, "Have you ever lost something big in life?" Alma thought about her father, about loneliness, about the life she had built on money but not love. She nodded but said only, "Yes." Miriam didn't pressure her to explain. That silence was the most respectful silence Alma had ever felt. Over the next 2 weeks, Alma saw people's real faces. 2 cleaners mocked her for being too quiet. One tried to bully her, thinking she was weak. Another cleaner, Josephine, asked her for money and spread rumors when she refused. She realized how cruel people could be when they sensed weakness. Yet she also saw something else, kindness in unexpected corners. Miriam always noticed when someone was sad. She gave her own lunch to an old security guard who had none. She listened when people complained, but never added fuel to gossip. Alma slowly began to admire her, not just as a good person, but as someone rare, someone real. But not everyone liked Miriam. Some thought she was too quiet. Others said she tried to act holy. One day during work, Josephine accused Miriam of stealing a guest's missing perfume bottle. Eric, the wicked supervisor, seized the moment.
"You have always looked suspicious," Eric shouted. "We will search her things." Miriam's eyes widened. "I didn't take anything," but Eric didn't care. He wanted humiliation. He emptied her small handbag in front of everyone, lip balm, handkerchief, rosary, keys, nothing else. Then he sneered. "Maybe you hid it elsewhere." Alma couldn't stay silent anymore. Something boiled inside her. She stepped forward and spoke boldly. "You will apologize to her." Eric turned, astonished. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Alma's heart raced. She nearly revealed herself, but she stayed calm. "You treat people badly because you think they are powerless. But one day, you will answer for how you treat others." The room went silent. Even the walls seemed to listen. Eric laughed coldly. "You think kindness works in Lagos? Wake up. This is survival. Only the strong eat." Miriam gently stepped between them and said, "Eric, sometimes the strong are just people afraid to be kind." Eric rolled his eyes and stormed away. But others looked at Miriam differently that day. Alma realized that some battles are not won with shouting but with character. As the days passed, Alma started helping more. She volunteered for extra shifts. She bought snacks for the staff using her savings. She laughed more, felt more, lived more. Yet deep inside, she wondered, what will happen when they know the truth? When I return to my real life? Will anyone forgive me? One evening, while walking home, she asked Miriam, "If someone lied to you but only to understand life better, would you forgive them?" Miriam watched the sunset and replied, "If the lie was spoken with good intention and the heart remained pure, then yes, I would forgive. Because sometimes people lie not because they are bad, but because life has become too heavy for truth alone." Alma bit her lip. Tears welled in her eyes, but she hid them. She couldn't break her cover. Not yet. And then came day 27. Everything changed. That morning, Eric received a phone call from corporate headquarters. The CEO herself would visit the hotel in 3 days, unannounced. Everyone panicked. Supervisors rushed around, barking orders. Workers were forced to clean twice as hard. Alma felt a strange rush. She had planned this moment. But none of them knew she was the CEO. She watched them. She watched who worked sincerely and who worked only because of fear. And then she saw what power truly did to people. On day 30, the final test would begin. And only one person, unknown, humble, unnoticed, would pass it. The one cleaner whose heart held more value than any mansion. The morning of day 28 was different. The sky seemed brighter, yet the workers were tense. Everyone was told to stay sharp. Corporate inspectors would be coming any day now, and the hotel must look spotless. Alma couldn't help but feel the irony. For weeks, they ignored the cleaners, but now everyone acted as though they mattered. Supervisors started calling everyone sir and ma. Eric, of all people, began greeting people with forced politeness. He even straightened his tie before speaking to cleaners, people he usually insulted freely. That day, during lunch break, Alma sat silently under a tree behind the hotel, where workers often went to rest. Miriam joined her, holding a small bowl of rice with sauce. She offered Alma half. "Eat," she said softly. "Break time will finish soon." Alma smiled. "You always share," she said, "even when you have little." Miriam shrugged. "When God gives us enough for two, we must feed two." Alma looked at her carefully and asked, "But what if God gives us enough for one?" Miriam smiled with wisdom in her eyes. "Then we must split it into two." They ate quietly. Birds chirped overhead. Workers walked around hurriedly, worried about the inspection. Alma noticed something else. People were pretending to work harder only because they were afraid. She wondered, is fear a stronger motivator than kindness? Must respect always be earned through threat? Later that evening, Alma passed by the hotel lobby and saw Eric speaking with a manager in hushed tones. They didn't notice her, and their words floated through the corridor. "I don't care if the CEO comes," Eric whispered. "I'll tell them I need a raise or I'll quit." The manager's voice was shaky. "Don't be foolish. They might cut staff. They don't care about our lives." Alma felt a surge of frustration. They don't care about staff, but I care. But still, she held her silence. She needed to see everything before the truth could come out. That night, Alma couldn't sleep. She lay on the small mattress in her rented room, staring at the cracked ceiling. What if the test fails? What if no one proves worthy? Will I return to my old life, still alone? She tossed and turned. But then, she remembered Miriam's words. Sometimes, when life fails to give us what we need, we find strength we didn't know we had. She slowly closed her eyes. Day 29 arrived. The hotel buzzed with tension. Decorations were added. Floors were scrubbed until they shone. Staff were given lecture after lecture about behavior and courtesy. Management was desperate to impress the CEO, unaware that she had already walked among them, mopped their floors, cleaned their toilets. In the afternoon, Alma saw Eric shouting again, this time at a young cleaner named Bola, no older than 20. She had accidentally spilled a bucket of water while mopping the corridor. "You stupid village girl," Eric yelled. "You have no brain? This is why poor people remain poor. Useless." Alma stepped forward. "That's enough," she said firmly. Eric turned, eyes blazing. "One more word from you, Alma, and I'll make sure you're fired before the CEO even gets here." Alma's heart pounded, but this time she didn't back down. "You speak about power, but power is not shouting. True power is how you treat the weak." Eric was taken aback. Other cleaners began watching. Bola's eyes were full of tears. Alma continued, "Do you think humiliation makes you stronger? You think insulting poor people makes you better than them?" Eric scoffed. "You know nothing about success. Only money wins in this world." Miriam entered at that moment, having heard the shouting. She walked up slowly and said, "Eric, I hope someday you will realize that a man with a hard heart sleeps on rocks every night, even if his bed is soft." The words were simple, but powerful. Some cleaners nodded. Others went silent. Eric tried to mock her, but strangely, something in Miriam's eyes made him quiet. His voice lost its strength. He walked away. That evening, Alma and Miriam walked home together. The streetlights flickered along dusty roads. Small kiosks prepared roasted plantains as evening customers gathered. The air smelled of smoke and spices. Children played football with the plastic bottle. Women gossiped in small groups. Life was loud and alive. Alma finally said, "Miriam, you do not fight people with anger. But you still win. How do you do it?" Miriam looked at her with kind eyes. "Anger sharpens the tongue, but dulls the soul. I have children, they watch me. I cannot let them learn bitterness from their mother." Alma exhaled deeply. She wanted, so badly, to confess everything. But she couldn't. Not yet. That night, Alma didn't sleep. She sat upright until dawn, thinking of what tomorrow would bring. Day 30. The final day. At 7 a.m., the staff lined up in the lobby. They had formed 2 clean rows in preparation for the CEO's arrival. Alma stood among them, dressed like every other cleaner, but with a heart pounding like a drum. The manager walked in nervously and said, "Anyone who makes a mistake today will be fired immediately." Eric added loudly, "Especially the cleaners. Don't embarrass us." Alma watched their faces. She saw fear. She saw desperation. But she also saw something beautiful, a shared dignity among the workers. They stood together, in uniform, in silence, in hope. At 10 a.m., footsteps echoed from the entrance. A tall, elegant woman entered with 4 security officers, a woman dressed in fine Ankara fabric and gold earrings. Her shoes clicked against the marble floor. Everyone bowed slightly in respect. Whispers spread through the hall. "The CEO is here, look at her outfit. She's a powerful woman, she owns everything." Alma smiled to herself. They don't even know that the woman they fear is standing among them already. The elegant woman, her hired stand-in, walked across the lobby. She examined the staff, looked at the managers, even greeted supervisors. She passed the cleaners without a single word, without a single look. Alma felt something painful then. For weeks she had felt invisible. Now it hurt more than ever. The inspection lasted all day. Staff gave reports. Supervisors tried to boast of their work. Eric praised himself repeatedly. When asked about cleaners, he said, "They are manageable. But we must remove the lazy ones." Alma clenched her jaw. She had heard enough. The time had come. At the end of the day, the fake CEO stood with the staff once more and said, "Before we leave, I was instructed to give a message to one person in this hotel, a cleaner by the name of Alma Nwosu. Please step forward." Whispers flew everywhere. Alma walked out slowly. The fake CEO continued, "You have been under observation for 30 days, and today, your identity will be revealed." The staff frowned in confusion. Alma looked around quietly, then she removed her cap, slowly stood upright, and her voice changed, calmer, stronger, fuller. "My name is Adana Okoro." Gasps filled the lobby. Some workers staggered back. The manager froze. Eric's jaw dropped. Alma, no longer Alma, but Adana, spoke with a voice that echoed power and calm. "I am the real owner of this company, and I have spent the last 30 days working beside you, living beside you, learning about life, kindness, and truth." Miriam's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Adana continued, "I didn't come here to punish anyone. I came to see who truly had a heart worth trusting. Some showed cruelty when they thought I was poor. Some showed kindness when they gained nothing from it." She turned to Eric. "You, Cert, will be replaced immediately." Eric fell to his knees. "Please, Ma. It was a mistake. I was only trying to enforce discipline." Adana's voice stayed calm. "Discipline is not disrespect." She dismissed him on the spot. She then turned to the cleaners. "But among you, one person shone like the sun." Her eyes rested on Miriam. Everyone looked at her. Miriam stood still, confused, afraid, unsure. Adana said gently, You did not know me, yet you treated me like a person. You gave me food when you had little. You defended the weak. You did not seek praise. You cared, not because you had to, but because it was right. Tears began streaming down Miriam's cheeks. I came here searching for one thing that money could not buy, Adana continued. A real friend. And I found her. Silence filled the room. No sound. No movement. Just hearts beating. Adana walked toward Miriam slowly, then knelt before her. Will you be my friend? She asked softly. Miriam almost couldn't speak. Then, with trembling hands, she embraced her. The workers gasped. Some cried. Others clapped slowly, then loudly. But Adana wasn't done. She stood up and addressed everyone. From today, all cleaners in this hotel will receive a salary increase. Medical benefits will be included. Training programs will be offered. Some workers cried openly now. And anyone who treats another human being as trash will no longer have a place in this company. She paused. But if anyone seeks change, redemption, or a new chance, there is room for forgiveness. Starting now. She looked at Eric one final time. Your job is gone, but your life is not. Choose wisely what man you will become after today. The room fell silent again. That evening, she invited all workers to a feast in the hotel's garden. Jollof rice, fried plantain, grilled fish, pepper soup, fruits, drinks. It was a celebration like they had never seen. No hierarchy. No titles. No separation. Workers danced, laughed, sang songs of joy. And Adana? She stood beside Miriam, holding her hand, smiling for real for the first time in many years. She had found what she was searching for. But life always brings tests, even after victory, because soon someone from her past would return. A person who once betrayed her, and who now wanted revenge. The feast that night felt like a festival from another world. Lanterns glowed gently across the hotel gardens. The smell of jollof rice mixed with laughter. Workers who once felt invisible now danced freely under the stars. Children of the staff were allowed to join, chasing each other around tables set with food they never dreamed of tasting. For the first time in years, Adana didn't stand apart. She blended in. She didn't sit at the head of the table. She sat beside Miriam and the cleaners. She listened to their stories, their struggles, their dreams. She heard the hearts she had ignored as a CEO. The staff felt confused at first, then grateful, then hopeful. And as the night went on, dignity slowly returned to their eyes. At one point, Bola, the youngest cleaner, stood up and asked shyly, Madam, can I say something? Adana nodded. I came to Lagos last year, Bola began, with only 5,000 naira. My uncle promised to help me, but when I arrived, he told me I was on my own. I slept at the bus station for 2 nights before getting this job. I never believed a CEO would ever sit beside people like us. I just want to say thank you. Applause followed. The workers clapped as if cheering for themselves, as if finally believing that life might change for them, too. But even in joy, some things remain hidden. Because in the far corner, standing in the shadows, someone was watching. A woman in a red dress. Sharp eyes. Motionless. Not smiling, not clapping. Her name was Chinyinaji. To the hotel staff, she was just a wealthy guest. But to Adana, she was a ghost from her past. A woman who once smiled in her face while plotting behind her back. A woman who once said, trust me like a sister, but later betrayed her. And she was back. As the celebration continued, Chinyu slowly approached the gathering. Her heels clicked softly against the stone path. Adana saw her. Her jaw tightened. Miriam noticed the change in her expression. Are you okay? She asked. Adana nodded slowly, but her eyes remained fixed on the woman in red. Chinyu stopped in front of her and spoke with calm arrogance. So, Adana, it is true. You live among cleaners now. Adana's heart went cold. Chinyu. Miriam felt the air shift. Something dark was unfolding. The workers sensed tension and slowly fell silent. Chinyu leaned forward slightly. Have you forgotten me already? You and I used to be partners. We built your first estate together. before you push me aside. Adana's voice was steady. I didn't push you aside. You sold my building plans to another company for money. You betrayed me. Murmurs spread across the garden. Eyes widened. The celebration ended in shock. But Chinyu only smiled. Betrayal? I call it business. She stepped closer, dangerously close. And I heard you are planning to invest heavily in Ajagunal and Enugu State. A new real estate expansion. I will make sure it never happens. The government will revoke your permits before sunrise tomorrow. I already have people working on it. Miriam took a small step forward. She had never felt so protective in her life. But Adana stayed calm. I'm not scared of your threats. Chinyu raised a brow. You should be. Because power is not what people think you have, it is what people let you keep. And tomorrow you will have nothing. She quietly turned, about to walk away. But Adana spoke firmly. You came here looking for war, but I have found peace. Chinyu halted, her eyes sharp as knives. Then your peace will die with you. The workers stared in disbelief. Some feared losing their jobs already. Others silently prayed. Chinyu strolled away into the darkness, confident she held the upper hand. But Miriam walked to Adana and held her arm gently. Are you safe? Is what she said true? Adana didn't lie. Yes. Chinyu still has connections. If she turns them against me, it could ruin my business. And maybe this hotel too. Miriam took a deep breath, then said something unexpected. You aren't alone anymore. Whatever happens, I will stand with you. Adana felt something powerful. Her heart trembled. Miriam wasn't wealthy. She had no influence. Yet her loyalty was richer than gold. That night, as the workers dispersed, Miriam insisted Adana come to her home again. You should not sleep alone, she said. Not tonight. So Adana followed her to the small compound. Again, the leaky roof, the cracked walls, the tiny bed. But this time, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt safe. They sat under the small window, the night air warm against their skin. Miriam boiled water for tea on a portable stove. Adana finally asked, Miriam, if you had money and power, would you change? Miriam turned the kettle slowly. I would help, but not change. Adana looked at her closely. Most people change. Miriam smiled. That is because they forget who they were, what hunger felt like, how it sounds when a child asks for food and there is nothing to give. Some hearts forget suffering easily. Mine remembers. After a long silence, Adana said quietly, I will offer you two things tomorrow. First, your own house, fully paid for, anywhere you choose. Second, a position beside me in business. I want you to grow with me. Miriam slowly paused her movements. She sat down. Her eyes glistened. Then she said gently, I don't need a big house, but I want my children to feel safe. And as for working with you, I'm honored. But I must ask for one thing, too. Adana smiled. What is it? Promise me, Miriam said softly, that success will never harden your heart again. Adana felt tears form, but this time she didn't hide them. She nodded. I promise. Then something unexpected happened. Miriam hugged her. And in that moment, Adana felt like life had given her back something she had lost long ago. Belonging. Morning arrived, warm and hopeful, but the world outside was waiting with jagged teeth. By 9 a.m., news began spreading online. Major CEO under investigation, land permits under review, estate project in danger, insider claims sabotage from partner. Chinyu had pulled strings exactly as promised. Her contacts in government had forced a sudden review into Adana's companies. No charges were made, but suspicion alone was enough to shake investors. Phone calls flooded in from worried associates. The hotel management looked panicked. Some workers feared losing their jobs again. In a matter of hours, everything had changed. At 11 a.m., Chinyu herself arrived with a government officer. She stood at the reception desk proudly and announced, until the investigation is over, all your new projects are suspended, including the Ajagunal renovation. Everyone turned to Adana. The officer spoke coldly. This process may take months. We advise you to halt any public operations until the case is reviewed. It was a blow none of them expected. For a moment, Adana stood silent. Then she said something that stunned them all. I accept your investigation. Murmurs erupted. Some gasped. Chinyu smirked, victory in her eyes. But Adana's gaze was steady.
Calm.
I welcome the review. Because my records are clean. My intentions are good. And my staff stand with me. Then she looked at the cleaners, at Miriam, and said, Do you stand with me? Without hesitation, Miriam stepped forward. Then Bola. Then others. Slowly, almost every worker stood behind her. Adana looked back at Chinyu and said, And that is power. Not fear. Not control. But loyalty. The officer was taken aback by the display of unity. He cleared his throat and said, We will continue the investigation. But your staff may continue their duties as normal. No business will be shut down yet. Gasps of relief followed. Chinyu's smile faded slightly. She turned to leave, but Adana called after her. Chinyu, I loved you once as a sister.
You taught me the cost of trust.
But hear me today. Adana's voice grew stronger. Your revenge will not destroy me. It will reveal you. Miriam added softly. A person who fights with bitterness will always bleed, even when they win. Chinyu's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She quietly walked away, not defeated, not victorious, but unsettled. That evening, Adana stood alone beside the hotel balcony, watching the sun sink into the horizon. Workers walked home.
Cars passed by.
Life moved, but her heart felt suspended between fear and faith. She felt footsteps. It was Miriam. Are you scared? She asked gently. Adana nodded slowly. Yes. Good, Miriam replied. Courage without fear is just pride. Fear makes us human. Courage comes when we move forward despite it. Then she held Adana's hand. In that moment, a city below them moved on with its noise and chaos. But on that balcony, two women stood, side by side, one wealthy, one humble, yet somehow equal and ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Amina's eyes opened slowly, the ceiling above her blurring into light. She heard soft footsteps around her, smelled disinfectant mixed with lemongrass oil. She blinked, trying to remember how she got here. Something felt wrong. Her arms were wrapped in bandages, her head was heavy, and a faint burn tingled along her cheek. She tried to sit up but felt a sharp pain in her ribs. A voice gently pushed her back down. Pull. Don't sit yet. That voice. Soft but strong. Comforting. Familiar. Jalea? Amina croaked, her throat dry. Jalea stepped into view, still wearing her cleaner's uniform but with a big pot of cooked uji in her hands. Her eyes were swollen, clearly from crying. But her smile was genuine. Mungu Akabariki, you're awake. I thought we lost you that night. Amina remembered everything now. The blow to the head, the fire, Kemi's confession, the villagers' screams, the chaos, and the moment she felt her eyes closing as darkness pulled her in. She also remembered Jalea's voice, shouting her name as everything burned. Where am I? Amina whispered. Mombasa General Hospital, Jalea said softly. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. Sure. Jalea said, placing her hand softly on Amina's forehead. You need rest. Then, another voice entered the room.
Deeper. Male.
Confident. I think she can handle the truth now. It was Dr. Samuel, head physician of the hospital. Amina glanced at him curiously. He looked at her not like a patient, but like someone he admired. What truth? She asked. He pulled up a chair and sat. The truth, he said slowly, that you are a walking miracle. Amina blinked. The villagers thought you died in the fire, he continued. But when our ambulance arrived, one person was standing over you, refusing to leave your side. Amina turned to look at Jalea. Tears filled her eyes. Waliema, she whispered. Jalea sighed sadly. She made it. She's safe. She's sleeping in the next room. Amina tried to sit again, despite the pain. What about Kemi? The others? Dr. Samuel's expression hardened. Kemi was found unconscious in her father's compound. She had packed money to escape. When she woke up, she broke down completely and confessed everything in front of the police. The stolen money, the betrayal, the lies. She was arrested this morning. Silence filled the room. Amina closed her eyes slowly, not in anger, not in satisfaction, but in sorrow. Kemi had been a friend, a sister even, but betrayal has a way of turning love into ash. I wanted to bring justice, Amina whispered, but I never wanted to destroy her. Dr. Samuel replied, sometimes truth burns more painfully than flames. 3 days passed. Amina recovered slowly, but her heart remained heavy. She had many visitors, villagers, nurses, even some people from the city who recognized her after the news began spreading. Her identity was no longer hidden. Television reporters wanted interviews. Bloggers begged for photos. People were now calling it the billionaire who lived as a pauper story. But Amina avoided cameras. She stared out the window, watching as the sun fell over the horizon, turning the Kenyan sky orange and gold. Jalea sat with her, peeling oranges silently. You know, Amina said softly, I never wanted fame. I never wanted pity. I just wanted one honest person. Jalea smiled gently. And now you have one. Amina looked at her. I have more than that, she said. I have a sister. They shared a quiet moment, a peaceful silence that didn't need words. Then, Jalea asked what had been on her mind for days. Now that the world knows who you are, what will happen to me? I'm just a cleaner from the slums. Amina turned to her, holding her hand firmly. No, she said with warmth. You are the reason I survived. Not just the fire, but loneliness. Tears rolled down Jalea's cheeks, but this time, they were tears of healing. Amina continued. I want you to work with me. Not for me. I want us to rebuild something. I want to change lives. Just like you changed mine. Jalea froze. Her lips trembled. You mean a real job? In your company? Amina smiled.
Yes.
But not just a job. I want you to help lead an entire foundation dedicated to helping girls from poor families finish school, in memory of your mother. Jalea covered her mouth, then burst into tears. She wept not because she was sad, but because hope for the first time in years finally felt real. I don't know what to say, she stammered. Amina wiped her tears. Say nothing. Just promise me one thing. What? Stay exactly who you are. 2 months passed. Life took a new turn. The Waliema Foundation was formed, named after the orphan girl who taught Amina the power of kindness without expecting reward. Schools began receiving funding. Girls who had dropped out received scholarships. Healthcare programs were opened in forgotten villages. Mothers who sold vegetables on the roadside were given interest-free loans. New wells were dug, solar panels installed, and literacy programs launched. The foundation became a light in the darkness. And every time someone asked Dr. Samuel or Amina how this all started, they always gave the same answer. It began with simple kindness from a woman the world had overlooked. Jalea now lived in a modest but beautiful apartment in Nairobi. She had an office, her name written on the door. She dressed better, but never extravagantly. She still greeted the cleaners, still walked through the slums to check on people. She never forgot where she came from. Sometimes, at night, she went alone to the rooftop of their foundation's building and stared at the night sky. She always whispered the same words. Thank you, Mama. I made it. On one such night, Amina joined her with 2 mugs of ginger tea. They sat quietly under the stars, Nairobi lights glimmering below like tiny diamonds. Amina took a deep breath. Do you regret anything? She asked. Jalea thought for a moment. Only one thing. What? That you ever needed to test people at all. Amina nodded slowly. Pain taught me distrust. But I don't regret the journey, because it led me here. Jalea smiled, staring into the sky. And maybe somewhere up there, our mothers are drinking tea together too. Amina laughed softly. In better cups than ours, I hope. They stayed quiet again. Not because there was nothing to say, but because they finally felt peace. A life without masks. A friendship beyond titles. A future built on loyalty, not wealth. And in that moment, the wind felt softer. The city lights felt warmer. And the stars above Nairobi felt almost alive. For the first time in a long time, Amina whispered words she thought she had forgotten. I'm not alone anymore. And Jalea responded, holding her shoulder gently. You never were. A few weeks later, Amina held a small ceremony in the village where everything had started. Not a grand event, no expensive suits, no photographers. Just the villagers, children, and a soft-spoken priest under a mango tree. They planted a new tree, beside the remains of the one that had burned. And on a small wooden sign, they carved words in Swahili. Waminifu and Ayudiari Wakweli. Loyalty is the true wealth. As the wind blew across the fields, children danced. Women sang. Old men smiled with missing teeth. Young girls watched Amina and Jalea like they were queens. And perhaps, in a way, they were. Not queens of gold, but queens of hearts. Final scene, Nairobi Airport. Amina stood beside Jalea and Waliema holding passports. All three were dressed modestly, but confidently. Amina had received invitations from international organizations to speak about her work in women empowerment. Journalists waited nearby, but Amina quietly waved them off. This was not about fame, nor about her. It was about a message. That even in pain, humanity remains. That in betrayal, there is still hope. That in poverty, dignity can survive. And that sometimes the most loyal friend is the one the world ignores. As their flight began boarding, Jalea held Amina's hand tightly. Are you nervous? Amina asked. A little. Jalea smiled. Good, Amina replied. Great things always begin with a little fear. They walked forward. Three women, once invisible, now walking into a future brighter than diamonds. Their steps were slow, but their hearts were steady, because loyalty had given them wings. And the world was finally ready to listen.